The woman appeared in Helena, Montana Territory on a Wednesday morning in September of 1878, stumbling down Last Chance Gulch with blood on her torn calico dress and eyes that saw nothing at all. Adam Norwood was loading fence posts onto his wagon outside Murphy's General Store when he first spotted her weaving between the miners and merchants like a ghost made flesh. She moved without purpose, barefoot on the dusty street, her dark hair hanging loose and tangled past her shoulders. When a freight wagon came barreling toward her, the driver shouting warnings, she did not react. Adam dropped the post he was holding and ran, grabbing her around the waist and pulling her to safety just as the wagon thundered past, close enough that the wind of its passing lifted her hair. She did not scream. She did not gasp. She stood in his arms as still as death itself, staring at nothing with eyes the color of honey in sunlight. Her silence was absolute, total, as if speech had been carved out of her and taken somewhere far away. Miss, are you hurt?" Adam searched her face for any sign of understanding. She was perhaps 20 years old, with delicate features now marked by bruises yellowing along her jaw. The blood on her dress was dried and dark, and he could not tell if it was hers. "Can you hear me?" Nothing. Not even a flicker of recognition. Her breathing was shallow and even, her body neither tense nor relaxed, simply present in a way that made his chest ache with an emotion he could not name. A crowd had begun to gather, the curious and concerned citizens of Helena drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house pressed forward, clucking her tongue. "Poor thing looks like she's been through hell itself. We should get Doc Morrison." "I will take her," Adam said, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. He was just a ranch hand, 24 years old and rough around the edges, more comfortable with horses than people. But something in this woman's silence called to him, demanded protection, required gentleness. "Can you walk, miss?" She did not answer, but when he touched her elbow and guided her toward his wagon, she moved with him, compliant as a sleepwalker. He helped her onto the bench seat with careful hands, then climbed up beside her and took the reins. Dr. Morrison's office was 3 streets over, a tidy building that smelled of carbolic and whiskey. The doctor himself was a transplant from Boston, a man who had come west seeking adventure and found instead the endless work of patching up miners, cowboys, and the occasional victim of violence. He took one look at the woman and ushered them inside, set her on the examination table. "What happened?" "I do not know. She walked into town looking like this. She will not speak." Morrison lit a lamp and began his examination with professional efficiency. Adam stood by the door, hat in hands, feeling awkward and unnecessary but unable to make himself leave. The woman sat motionless while the doctor checked her pulse, examined her bruises, lifted her eyelids to peer at her pupils. "No serious injuries that I can see," Morrison said finally. "The blood is not hers, or at least not from any wound I can find. The bruises are several days old, already healing, but her mind, that is another matter entirely." He waved a hand in front of her face. "No reaction. She may be in shock. I have seen it before, in soldiers and survivors of terrible events. The mind retreats somewhere safe and refuses to come back. What can be done for her? Time, patience, safety. She needs to be somewhere she feels protected while her mind heals. Do you know her?" "Anyone in town who might claim her?" Adam shook his head. "I have never seen her before. Someone must know her or know what happened." But nobody did. Morrison sent word to the marshal, who made inquiries throughout Helena and found nothing. No one had seen her arrive. No one was missing a wife or daughter or sister matching her description. She was a mystery dropped into their midst without explanation or origin. "She cannot stay here," Morrison said that evening after a day of fruitless searching. I need this room for actual patients. The boarding house might take her, or perhaps the church. Adam thought of Mrs. Patterson's boarding house, crowded and noisy with minors coming and going at all hours. He thought of the church, well-meaning but impersonal, charity without warmth. Then he thought of the double-bar ranch where he worked, 20 miles outside of town, and the small cabin he occupied alone. I will take her, he said. Morrison raised his eyebrows. That might not be appropriate, given her condition and your bachelor status. There is a woman who comes from town twice a week to do washing and cooking for the ranch hands, Mrs. Chen. She can help make it respectable. The woman needs quiet and safety, and I can provide that. He met the doctor's gaze steadily. I will not harm her. I did not think you would. But people talk. Let them. So Adam took her home as the sun was setting, painting the mountains gold and purple. She sat beside him on the wagon bench, still silent, still staring at nothing. He had bought her a pair of simple boots from Murphy's and a shawl to cover her torn dress, and she had allowed him to put these on her without resistance or acknowledgement. The double-bar ranch sprawled across a valley where the prickly Pear Creek ran clear and cold. Adam's cabin was separate from the main bunkhouse, a privilege earned through 5 years of loyal work. It was small but well-built, one room with a sleeping loft, a stone fireplace, and a table he had made himself from pine. He had never brought a woman here before. He helped her down from the wagon and led her inside, lighting the lamps against the gathering darkness. She stood in the middle of the room, hands at her sides, waiting for something or nothing. You can have the bed, Adam said, gesturing to the loft. I will sleep down here. Are you hungry? Thirsty? No response. He ladled water from the bucket into a tin cup and brought it to her, closing her fingers around it. She held it but did not drink. Gently, he guided the cup to her lips and tilted it. She drank then, mechanically, water spilling down her chin. When the cup was empty, he took it away. I will make us something to eat. He fried salt pork and beans, simple fare that was all he knew how to make. She ate when he fed her, opening her mouth like a child, but her eyes never focused on him or the food or anything in the cabin. After the meal, he showed her the loft, the bed with its quilt that his mother had made before she died. The woman climbed the ladder without assistance and lay down fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Adam sat by the fire long into the night, listening to her breathe, wondering what he had gotten himself into. The ranch foreman, a grizzled man named Dutch, rode out the next morning to see why Adam had not shown up for work. He found him mending fence behind the cabin while the woman sat on the porch steps, motionless. What in the name of all that is holy is that? Dutch demanded. Adam explained, or tried to. The story sounded thin in the daylight, improbable. A silent woman, origin unknown, now living in his cabin. Dutch listened with increasing disbelief. You cannot keep her like some stray dog, Adam. I am not keeping her. I am helping her until she heals. And if she never heals, if she stays silent forever, then I will wait until she is ready, Adam said simply. Dutch shook his head but did not argue further. He rode back to the main house, returning an hour later with Mrs. Chen, who had been at the ranch washing linens. She was a small woman, Chinese, who had come to Montana with her husband during the gold rush and stayed after he died in a mine collapse. She spoke little but understood much. Mrs. Chen approached the woman on the porch with careful steps, studying her with sharp eyes. She sat beside her, not touching, just present. Then she began to hum, a melody without words, something that sounded like home even though Adam had never heard it before. For the first time, something changed in the woman's face. Not awareness exactly, but a lessening of the terrible emptiness, a slight softening around her eyes. She has seen bad things, Mrs. Chen said quietly, Very bad, her spirit is hiding. Will she come back? Maybe, maybe not. But she needs gentleness now, clean clothes, good food, safety. These things help the spirit remember it wants to live. Mrs. Chen took the woman inside and with patient hands, helped her wash and change into a simple dress that Mrs. Chen brought from her own small wardrobe. She braided the woman's hair, fingers moving with practiced ease, humming all the while. Adam watched from the doorway, feeling useless and large and clumsy. "You are a good man to help," Mrs. Chen told him as she prepared to leave. "Many men would not. I could not leave her. I know. This is why you are a good man." The days fell into a rhythm. Adam worked his regular hours at the ranch, mending fences and breaking horses and doing the 100 tasks that kept a cattle operation running. Mrs. Chen came every other day, spending time with the woman, coaxing her to eat and wash and move through the basic patterns of living. On the days when Mrs. Chen did not come, Adam did his best, speaking to the woman in quiet tones about nothing in particular, narrating his life like it mattered. "The fence along the north pasture is nearly finished," he would say over breakfast. "There is a mare in the breaking corral who has a good temperament. She will make someone a fine riding horse. The autumn is coming early this year. You can smell it in the air." The woman never responded, but she began to do small things. She would pick up her own cup now and drink without assistance. She started to climb down from the loft in the mornings on her own, to sit by the fire and stare into the flames. Once, Adam came home to find she had moved a chair to face the window, watching the mountains turn purple in the dusk. He named her in his head because she needed to be called something. Hannah. It felt right, soft and old-fashioned, a name from somewhere back east where people had gardens and churches with bell towers. But he did not call her this aloud, waiting for the day she would tell him her real name. 3 weeks after he found her, the first snow came, dusting the peaks white and sending a chill through the valley. Adam was chopping wood when he saw her standing in the doorway of the cabin, barefoot again, having removed the boots. She was looking at the sky with an expression he could not read. "You will freeze," he said, setting down the axe. "Come inside." But she walked out into the yard instead, lifting her face to the falling snow. Flakes caught in her eyelashes, melted on her cheeks. She raised her hands, palms up, catching the snow like precious things. And then, so quietly he almost missed it, she made a sound. Not a word, just an exhalation of breath that was almost a sigh, almost wonder. His heart stuttered in his chest. He walked to her slowly, as he would approach a skittish horse stopping a few feet away. "It is beautiful, is it not?" The first snow, she turned her head toward him. Not looking at him, not quite, but acknowledging his presence for the first time. Her lips parted as if to speak, but nothing came. Frustration flickered across her face, there and gone. "It is all right," Adam said softly. "You do not have to speak. I will wait until you are ready." Something in her eyes shifted. Recognition, perhaps. Gratitude. She lowered her hands and walked back inside, leaving small footprints in the dusting of snow. That night, as Adam lay by the fire in his bedroll, he heard movement in the loft. Soft sounds, almost like crying, but without the tears. He climbed halfway up the ladder, peering into the darkness. "Are you all right?" A long silence. Then a whisper so faint he barely heard it. Cold. His breath caught. "You spoke." No response. But when he brought another blanket and climbed into the loft to spread it over her, she did not pull away. In the dim light from the fire below, he could see her eyes were closed, her breathing already evening into sleep. "Good night, miss," he whispered and climbed back down. "Mrs. Chen was delighted when he told her the next day. "The spirit is coming back. You must be patient still, but this is good sign." Patience was something Adam had in abundance. He had spent years working with difficult horses, learning that time and consistency could gentle the wildest animal. He applied the same principles now, creating a routine that was safe and predictable. He rose before dawn, made breakfast, worked until midday, came home to eat with the woman in companionable silence, returned to work, came home at dusk. Every evening he would tell her about his day, ask her gentle questions that required no answer, read aloud from the one book he owned, a collection of poems his mother had loved. She began to respond in small ways, a nod or shake of her head when he asked questions, a hand gesture to indicate yes or no. Once, he came home to find she had swept the cabin floor, the broom leaning against the wall as evidence of her effort. "Thank you," he said, looking around at the tidy space. "That was kind of you." She ducked her head, something like pleasure crossing her face. The marshal came by in early November, riding out from Helena with news. "Found something that might relate to your woman," he said, dismounting in front of the cabin. "Trading post up north was attacked about a month ago. Owner and his wife killed. They had a daughter, but her body was not found. Witnesses said there were 3 men drifters who robbed the place and burned it down. They are long gone now, headed toward Idaho territory most like." Adam felt sick. "The daughter, what was her name?" "Hannah Roberts. 20 years old, brown hair, about so tall." He indicated a height that matched the woman in Adam's cabin, Hannah. He had named her True without knowing. "Does she have other family?" "None that I can locate. Her parents came from Pennsylvania, but they have been in Montana territory for 10 years with no contact back east." The marshal shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "I am sorry. I know you were hoping for better news, someone to claim her, but at least you know now what she survived." After the marshal left, Adam sat on the porch for a long time, watching the light fade from the sky. The woman who was Hannah Roberts came and sat beside him, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the cold. They sat in silence until the stars came out, bright and hard in the winter sky. "Your name is Hannah," Adam said finally. "Your parents were killed. I am so sorry for what happened to you." She turned to look at him then, really look at him, seeing him perhaps for the first time. Her eyes were full of pain so deep it had no bottom, but also something else. A question. "You are safe here," he told her. "Those men are gone. They cannot hurt you anymore. You can stay as long as you need." She reached out, hesitant, and touched his hand where it rested on his knee. Just a brief touch, her fingers cold from the night air. Then she stood and went inside. Winter came in earnest, transforming the valley into a landscape of white and gray and the dark green of pine. The ranch work slowed, as it always did when the snow got deep. Adam spent more time at the cabin, splitting wood and keeping the fire high, making sure Hannah stayed warm and fed. She was eating better now, putting on weight. The bruises long faded from her face. She helped with small tasks around the cabin, washing dishes, mending his shirts, cooking simple meals under Mrs. Chen's instruction. They were living like husband and wife. Adam realized one day with a start, except for the fact that they barely spoke and slept on opposite sides of the cabin. The thought troubled him. He had not brought her here for that, had no designs on her beyond wanting to help. But he could not deny that his feelings were changing, deepening into something that felt dangerously like love. He loved the way she hummed while she worked, tuneless melodies that filled the cabin with soft sound. He loved how she would sit by the fire in the evenings, firelight painting her face gold, lost in thoughts she did not share. He loved her quietness, the way she existed in the world with such gentleness, despite what it had done to her. He loved her courage, the small steps she took every day toward healing, toward living again. But he kept these feelings locked inside, afraid that speaking them would drive her away or burden her with expectations she could not meet. She had suffered enough. She needed safety, not the complications of a man's affection. One night in December, a blizzard hit, howling down from the mountains with wind that shook the cabin walls. Snow piled against the door, sealing them inside. Adam kept the fire roaring. Burning through there would supply faster than he liked, but knowing they needed the heat. Hannah sat wrapped in blankets, watching the storm through the window with wide eyes. "It will pass by morning," Adam assured her. "These storms blow through fast." But this one did not. It raged for 3 days, burying the valley under 4 feet of snow. On the second day, their food ran low. On the third, the wood was nearly gone. Adam made ready to brave the storm, to dig his way to the woodpile outside, but Hannah grabbed his arm as he reached for the door. She shook her head urgently, fear clear on her face. "I must," he said. "We will freeze without more wood." She tightened her grip, then released him and pointed to herself, then the door. "You want to come with me?" A nod. They bundled up in every piece of warm clothing they had and pushed their way outside into a world of white chaos. The wind stole Adam's breath, the snow stinging his face like thrown sand. He grabbed Hannah's hand so they would not be separated and fought his way toward the woodpile, invisible under a drift. Together, they dug with their hands until they reached the wood, then carried armloads back to the cabin, making trip after trip until they had enough to last. Inside again, they stood by the fire shaking with cold, snow melting in their hair and on their clothes. Hannah's teeth were chattering, her lips blue. Adam rubbed her hands between his, trying to warm them. "That was foolish of both of us," he said, "but thank you for helping." She looked up at him, and he became suddenly aware of how close they were standing, how his hands held hers, how her face was tilted toward his. His heart began to pound for reasons that had nothing to do with exertion. "Hannah," he whispered. "Adam." His name, spoken in her voice for the first time, soft and clear and real. The sound of it broke something open in his chest. "You spoke my name. You have been patient with me, so patient. I wanted to thank you, but the words would not come." They were trapped behind everything that happened, behind all the horror. "But you waited. You said you would wait until I was ready." Her voice was rusty from disuse, halting, but it was hers. "I am not fully ready, not yet, but I am finding my way back, and it is because of you." He wanted to kiss her more than he had ever wanted anything in his life, but he held himself still. "You do not have to thank me. I did what anyone would do." "No, not anyone. You." She squeezed his hands. "You are a good man, Adam Norwood. I am just a ranch hand. You are the man who saved me, who gave me a place to heal, who has never asked for anything in return. You are the man I think I am falling in love with, though I am frightened to say it, frightened of everything still." His breath stopped. "Hannah, you do not have to feel the same. I know this is complicated, that I am complicated, broken maybe beyond fixing." "You are not broken," he said fiercely. "You are the strongest person I have ever met, and I do feel the same. I have felt it for weeks now, but I did not dare speak it, did not want to burden you. It is not a burden. It is the only thing that feels light." He kissed her then, gentle and careful, a question she answered by leaning into him, by sighing against his mouth like she had been waiting for this too. They stood by the fire while the storm raged outside, holding each other, and Adam thought that he had never felt more at home in his life. The blizzard passed that night, leaving the world transformed and silent. In the morning they woke to brilliant sunshine on new snow, the light so bright it hurt to look at. Hannah came down from the loft and for the first time sat beside Adam at the table instead of across from him. They ate breakfast together, shoulders touching, and it felt like a beginning. She began to speak more after that, though sometimes the words still stuck and she would fall silent for hours or days. Adam learned not to push, to let her find her own pace. She told him about her life before, growing up at the trading post, her parents who had been kind but stern, the loneliness of living so far from any town. She told him about the day the men came, though only in pieces, fragments she could manage. They wanted the money from the safe. My father refused to open it. They shot him. My mother screamed and they shot her too. I ran, but one of them caught me. He was going to, she stopped, unable to continue. You do not have to tell me. I want to, I need to. I hit him with a piece of firewood hard enough that he let go. The other two were arguing over what to do with me. I ran into the woods. I do not remember much after that. Walking, hiding, walking more. Then I was in Helena and you were there. Adam pulled her into his arms, holding her while she shook with silent sobs. They cannot hurt you anymore. I will never let anyone hurt you again. I know, she whispered. That is why I can speak of it now, because I know I am safe. Christmas came, and Adam rode into Helena to buy supplies and a few special things. He returned with sugar and dried apples for a pie, a length of blue calico for a dress, and a small book of poems by Emily Dickinson that the proprietor at Murphy's recommended. For someone special, Murphy had said with a knowing smile. The whole town knew about Adam and his silent woman by now, though the story had grown in the telling, becoming more dramatic and romantic than the simple truth. Hannah made the pie while Adam read to her from the new book, poems about hope and nature and the soul. When the pie was done, they ate it warm, the first sweet thing either of them had tasted in months. It was the best meal Adam had ever had. I have never celebrated Christmas properly, Hannah said. At the trading post, it was just another day. My parents were not religious, and there was no church for miles. We could start our own traditions, Adam suggested. Make it whatever we want it to be. They took a walk as the sun was setting, through the snow-covered valley to a place where the creek had frozen into a ribbon of ice. The sky turned pink and orange, the mountains dark against the light. Hannah slipped her hand into Adam's and they stood together in the cold beauty of the evening. I want to stay here, she said, with you, if you will have me. There is nothing I want more. But Hannah, we should do this properly. I should court you, ask your permission, speak to a preacher. I do not want people to think less of you. People already talk. Let them. I do not care about proper, I care about you. Then marry me, he said, the words surprising him even as they left his mouth. Not now, not until you are truly ready, but someday when you feel whole again, marry me and be my wife. She turned to him, tears on her cheeks that caught the dying light. Yes, someday, yes. The winter passed in a dream of quiet happiness. Hannah's voice grew stronger, her silences less frequent. She laughed for the first time in January, a startled sound at something funny Adam said, and the joy of hearing it made him laugh too until they were both doubled over, gasping. Mrs. Chen visited and pronounced Hannah much improved, her spirit returned to her body. You will marry this man? Mrs. Chen asked Hannah directly. I will, when spring comes. Good, he needs a wife, you need a husband, is good match. In February, Adam spoke to his boss about building a larger cabin, a real house where he could raise a family. The owner of the Double Bar Ranch, a man named Mr. Carlyle, agreed to provide materials in exchange for an extra year of work. They broke ground in March as soon as the earth thawed enough to dig. Hannah helped, hauling stones for the foundation, holding boards while Adam hammered. The house rose slowly, 2 rooms and a real kitchen, a porch facing the mountains. The preacher came from Helena in April, an itinerant minister who traveled between the mining camps and far-flung ranches. He was a young man with a booming voice and a genuine faith that showed in everything he did. He met with Adam and Hannah, asked them questions about their intentions and their faith, and agreed to marry them in May when the wildflowers bloomed. Hannah sewed her own dress from the blue calico and other fabric Adam bought, working by lamplight in the evenings. She had never been much for sewing, she admitted, but she wanted to make this herself. The result was simple but beautiful, the blue fabric bringing out the gold in her eyes. They married on a Saturday morning with the whole valley in bloom, lupine and Indian paintbrush carpeting the meadows in purple and red. Mrs. Chen stood up for Hannah, and Dutch stood up for Adam. The preacher read from Corinthians about love being patient and kind, and Adam thought, yes, that was exactly right. Their love had been patient, had waited while Hannah healed, and now it was ready to grow into something lasting. "I do," Hannah said clearly when asked if she would take Adam as her husband. "I do," Adam said, his voice rough with emotion. They sealed their vows with a kiss, and the small gathering cheered. Mrs. Chen had made a cake, and there was music from a fiddle player who worked at the ranch. They danced in the meadow, Hannah light in Adam's arms, spinning under the wide Montana sky. That night, in the new house that smelled of fresh cut pine and possibility, they came together as husband and wife. Hannah was nervous. Adam could feel her trembling, but when he asked if she was all right, she nodded. "I want this. I want you. I am just a little frightened. We will go slow. Tell me if you want to stop." But she did not want to stop. She wanted to reclaim what had nearly been stolen from her, to make this choice freely with a man she loved. And Adam loved her with all the patience and gentleness he had shown from the beginning, until her fears melted away, and there was only the two of them, together in the darkness, making promises with their bodies that their hearts had already sworn. Afterwards she lay in his arms and cried, but not from sadness. "I did not think I could feel this way again. Safe, happy, whole. You are whole. You have always been whole. You helped me see it." The spring turned into summer, warm and bright. Hannah planted a garden behind the house, coaxing vegetables from the rocky soil with determination and care. Adam worked the ranch, breaking horses and riding the range, coming home each evening to a wife and a home that felt like a miracle. They fell into married life with surprising ease, learning each other's habits and rhythms, building a partnership based on mutual respect and deepening love. In July, Hannah rode into Helena with Mrs. Chen to buy supplies. It was her first time back since the day Adam found her, and she was nervous but determined. The town had grown over the months, new buildings going up as more people poured into Montana territory seeking gold or land or new beginnings. They were leaving Murphy's general store, arms full of parcels, when a man stepped into their path. He was tall and dirty, with a scar running down his cheek and eyes that Hannah recognized from her nightmares. She froze. The parcels tumbled from her arms. "Mrs. Chen looked between Hannah's white face and the man, understanding dawning. "You," Hannah whispered. The man's eyes widened. "You are supposed to be dead. I lived. You killed my parents, but I lived." He took a step toward her, and Mrs. Chen moved between them, small but fierce. "You leave her alone. That is the girl from the trading post. She is a witness. She could hang me." "Then you should have thought of that before you murdered innocent people," Mrs. Chen snapped. People were starting to gather, drawn by the confrontation. The man looked around wildly, realizing he was trapped. He turned to run, but Adam appeared as if summoned by Hannah's distress, stepping out of the crowd to grab the man's arm. "You are not going anywhere. Let me go. I did not do anything." "He killed my parents," Hannah said, her voice shaking but clear. "He is one of the men who attacked the trading post last September." The marshal came at a run, alerted by the commotion. Within minutes, the man was in irons, being dragged toward the jail. He was shouting his innocence, but too many people had heard Hannah's accusation, had seen his attempt to flee. Adam pulled Hannah into his arms, feeling her shake. It is over now. They have him. The others. There were 2 others. The marshal will find them. But this one will hang for what he did. You have my word on that. The trial was held 3 weeks later, a quick affair given the clear evidence and multiple witnesses who had seen the man in the area at the time of the murders. Hannah had to testify, recounting the worst day of her life in a courtroom full of strangers. Adam sat behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence, and that gave her the strength to speak. The man was convicted and sentenced to hang. The other 2 were never found, likely dead in the wilderness or fled to California. It was not perfect justice, but it was enough. Hannah had looked her demon in the face and named him, had taken back the power he had stolen. She walked out of that courtroom with her head high, Adam's hand in hers. "I am free," she said wonderingly. "Really free for the first time since it happened. You were always free, but now you know it too." Life continued, sweeter for having survived the bitter. Hannah's garden flourished, providing vegetables through the summer. Adam was promoted to foreman when Dutch retired, a position of more responsibility and better pay. They began to plan for the future, talking about children and livestock and maybe someday having their own ranch. In October, Hannah realized her monthly courses had not come. She told Adam over breakfast, watching his face light up with joy and fear in equal measure. "A baby, I think so. It is too early to be certain, but yes, I think so." He came around the table and knelt before her, pressing his face against her still flat belly. "Hello, little one. You are already so loved." Hannah ran her fingers through his hair, her heart full to bursting. A year ago, she had been broken and silent, unable to imagine a future. Now she had a husband who cherished her, a home she had helped build, and a baby growing inside her. It was more than she had dared to hope for. The pregnancy progressed normally, confirmed by Dr. Morrison on a trip to Helena. Hannah bloomed with it, growing round and radiant. Adam fussed over her, worried about every little thing until she laughingly told him to stop treating her like glass. "I am having a baby, not dying. I know, but I cannot help worrying. You are the most precious thing in my life." "We are both precious," she said, taking his hand and placing it on her belly where the baby was kicking. "Feel that, your son or daughter saying hello." They argued good-naturedly about names. Adam wanted to name a son after his father, Henry. Hannah wanted to name a daughter after Mrs. Chen, though the name Lucy did not seem quite right for the fierce little woman who had helped her so much. In the end, they decided to wait and see what the baby looked like, what name felt right. The baby came in June of 1880, born in the house Adam built with a midwife from Helena in attendance, and Mrs. Chen boiling water and offering encouragement. It was a son, healthy and loud, with a shock of dark hair and his mother's golden eyes. They named him Henry Adam Norwood, called him Hank from the first day. Adam held his son with shaking hands, overwhelmed by the reality of this tiny person they had created. "He is perfect." "He is ours," Hannah said, exhausted but glowing. "Our son." Fatherhood transformed Adam in ways he had not expected. He had always been responsible and hardworking, but now he had a reason beyond himself. He worked harder, saved more carefully, planned more ambitiously. He wanted to give his son opportunities, education, a better life than what he himself had known. Hannah took to motherhood with natural ease, nursing Hank and singing him lullabies in the quiet of the night. Her voice, once lost, now filled their home with sound, with life. She talked to Hank constantly, narrating the world for him, determined that he would grow up with language and love in equal measure. When Hank was 6 months old, Adam came home one evening with news. "Mr. Carlyle is selling part of his land, dividing the ranch. He has offered me first chance to buy the section where our house stands. 500 acres, good grazing, access to the creek. We could have our own ranch, Hannah, the Norwood Ranch. Can we afford it? Barely. We would have to save for another year, borrow some from the bank. But yes, I think we can do it. Hannah looked around their home, at the garden she had planted, the corrals Adam had built, the pastures where cattle grazed. This land had given her back her life. The thought of owning it, truly belonging to it, made her eyes sting with tears. Let us do it. Let us build something lasting for Hank, for any other children we might have. They worked toward that goal with single-minded determination. Adam took on extra work, breaking horses for other ranchers, hiring himself out for difficult jobs that paid well. Hannah took in sewing, her skills improved with practice, making shirts and dresses for the women of Helena. They saved every penny, living frugally but happily. In the spring of 1881, they signed the papers that made them landowners. The Norwood Ranch was official, 500 acres of Montana Territory wilderness that they would tame together. They celebrated with a quiet dinner, just the three of them, and afterward, Hannah and Adam stood on their porch watching the sun set over their land. "Sometimes I think about that day in Helena," Hannah said softly. "When I was lost in my own mind, wandering the streets. If you had not been there, if you had not stopped that wagon, I would have died. But I was there, and you did not die. You lived and built a life and became the woman you were always meant to be. We built a life, together." "Together," he agreed, kissing her temple. "Always together." Their second child came in 1883, a daughter they named Lucy Rose, after Mrs. Chen, whose given name they had finally learned. Lucy had Hannah's delicate features and Adam's steady temperament, a calm baby who rarely cried. Hank, now 3 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to hold her and help care for her. The ranch grew along with their family. Adam bought more cattle, built more fences, hired hands to help with the work. Hannah's garden expanded into a proper farm plot, providing vegetables they sold in Helena along with eggs from her chickens. They were not rich, but they were prosperous and happy. In 1885, Montana Territory was preparing for statehood, and Helena was chosen as the capital. The town exploded with growth, new opportunities opening up. Adam and Hannah were invited to join civic organizations, to participate in the building of this new place. They went to dances and church socials, made friends among the other ranching families, became part of the community. People still talked about them sometimes. The ranch hand and the silent woman who had found each other in tragedy and built something beautiful. The story had taken on the quality of legend, polished and retold until it barely resembled the truth. But Adam and Hannah did not mind. They knew what was real: the quiet mornings, the hard work, the children growing tall and strong, the love that deepened with every passing year. Their third child, a son they named Thomas, came in 1887. He was a wild one from the start, always into mischief, keeping Hannah constantly busy. Adam would come home from working the ranch to find her frazzled and laughing, chasing Thomas away from the woodpile or the horses or whatever danger he had discovered that day. "He is just like you," Hannah accused, but she was smiling. "I was never that bad." Your mother would disagree if she were here to tell tales. They spoke of his mother sometimes, of Hannah's parents, keeping their memories alive for the children. The past was part of them, but it no longer defined them. They had built something new, something wholly their own. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1889, Adam surprised Hannah with a trip to Helena, leaving the children with Mrs. Chen, who had become like a grandmother to them. They stayed at the finest hotel, ate at a restaurant with white tablecloths, danced to music from a real orchestra. It was frivolous and expensive and absolutely worth it. "You remember our wedding?" Hannah asked as they waltzed across the floor. How simple it was. I remember everything about that day. How beautiful you looked in your blue dress. How clearly you said I do. How happy I was and will always be. 10 years. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime, and sometimes it feels like yesterday that you pulled me out of the path of that wagon. Best decision I ever made. Waiting for me. Even though you did not know if I would ever speak again. Especially that. You were worth waiting for, Hannah Norwood. You are worth everything. She laid her head on his shoulder, moving with him to the music, and thought about the long road they had traveled. From silence to speech, from brokenness to wholeness, from strangers to soulmates. It had not been easy, but it had been worth every difficult step. Montana achieved statehood in 1889, and the Norwoods celebrated along with their neighbors, proud to be part of this new state being born from the wilderness. The ranch continued to prosper, growing to over 1,000 acres through careful purchases and hard work. They built a larger house, though they kept the original cabin as a workshop and storehouse, unable to let go of the place where their story truly began. Hank grew into a serious boy who loved learning, devouring every book they could get him. At 12, he announced he wanted to be a lawyer to help people the way the marshal and judge had helped his mother. Adam and Hannah exchanged glances, pride and trepidation mingling. It would mean sending him away to school eventually, but they would support his dreams. Lucy was quieter, content to help her mother in the garden and around the house. She had a gift with animals, especially horses, and could gentle even the most skittish mare with patience and soft words. Adam taught her to ride, to rope, to do all the things a rancher needed to know. Thomas remained a handful, but his wildness was tempered with kindness. He was the first to help a neighbor, to share his toys, to stand up for someone being picked on. He made them laugh and drove them crazy in equal measure, and they loved him fiercely. In 1895, when Hank was 15 and preparing to leave for boarding school in Denver, the family gathered on the porch of the big house for a photograph. A traveling photographer had come through Helena, and Hannah insisted on capturing this moment. They posed formally, Adam and Hannah seated with Thomas on Hannah's lap, Hank and Lucy standing behind. "Stay still," the photographer instructed. "Do not move." The flash powder exploded with a puff of smoke, and it was done. A moment frozen forever, the Norwood family preserved in silver and paper. When the photograph arrived weeks later, Hannah hung it in a place of honor above the fireplace. She studied it often, marveling at the life they had built. The years continued to pass, each one adding new experiences and challenges. Hank did go to Denver, then to law school, returning to Montana to practice in Helena. Lucy married a neighboring rancher's son, a good man who respected her intelligence and strength. Thomas took over more of the ranch work as Adam aged, showing a natural talent for management and innovation. Adam and Hannah grew older together, their hair graying, their hands becoming gnarled from work, but still fitting perfectly together. They took walks in the evenings when the chores were done, moving slower now but still enjoying the beauty of the land they had made their own. On Hannah's 50th birthday in 1908, the whole family gathered at the ranch. Hank brought his wife and 2 children. Lucy brought her husband and their 3. Thomas, still unmarried but courting a school teacher from Helena, brought his sweetheart to meet everyone. The house was full of noise and life and love. After dinner, as the sun was setting and the grandchildren were playing in the yard, Hannah took Adam's hand and led him to the old cabin. They had not been inside in months, but it was still there, solid and familiar. "Remember," she said, standing in the middle of the single room, "every moment. You sat right there by the fire, silent and unreachable. I thought you might never come back. but you waited. I said I would. You saved my life, Adam, not just from the wagon, but from the darkness in my own mind. You gave me time and space to heal. You loved me when I could not love myself. You saved me too, he said, pulling her close. I was just going through the motions before you. Work, sleep, work again. You gave me purpose, a family, a reason to build something that would last. They stood in the cabin where it all began, holding each other as they had 1,000 times before, and felt the weight of their shared history. 30 years of marriage, 3 children, 7 grandchildren and counting, a ranch that had grown beyond their wildest dreams. It had started with a silent woman and a patient man, and it had become a legacy. I love you, Hannah said. I have loved you since the moment I first truly saw you there in the snow, and you told me you would wait until I was ready. I love you too. I will love you until my last breath and beyond. They walked back to the big house together as the stars came out, back to their family and the celebration. The grandchildren swarmed them, demanding stories, wanting attention. Adam and Hannah settled into chairs on the porch and told tales of the old days, of how Montana Territory became Montana, of how a ranch was built from nothing, of how 2 people found each other against all odds. The children listened with wide eyes, and Hannah thought about the power of stories, how they shaped us and connected us across time. Her own story had started in tragedy and silence, but it had become something beautiful. She had reclaimed her voice, her life, her very self, and she had done it with Adam by her side. As the evening wore on and the family eventually departed, leaving just the 2 of them alone again, Adam and Hannah sat together watching the moon rise over their land. The same mountain stood sentinel as they had 30 years ago. The same creek ran cold and clear, but everything else had changed, had grown, had flourished. It has been a good life, Hannah said softly. The best, Adam agreed. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes only from decades of companionship, and watched the night deepen around them. Tomorrow there would be work to do, always work on a ranch, but tonight there was peace. There was love. There was the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived together. And if sometimes Hannah thought about that girl wandering the streets of Helena, lost in silence and trauma, she felt only compassion for her. That girl had been brave enough to survive, to accept help, to slowly piece herself back together. That girl had found her voice again and used it to build a life worth speaking about. Thank you, she whispered to Adam. For what? For everything. For waiting. For loving me. For giving me this life. Thank you for letting me, he replied, kissing her hand. For trusting me enough to stay, to heal, to love me back. They went inside eventually, to the bed they had shared for 30 years, and held each other in the darkness. Outside, their land stretched in all directions, a testament to their hard work and dedication. Inside, their hearts beat in rhythm, 2 lives intertwined so completely that neither could remember what it felt like to be alone. Hannah drifted off to sleep with a smile on her face, Adam's arm around her waist, and she dreamed of wildflowers and first snow, of a blue calico dress and a cabin in the woods, of all the moments that had brought them to this place of peace and contentment. She had been silent once, trapped in her own mind by horror and grief. But a patient man had said he would wait until she was ready, and that promise had changed everything. She had been ready, and it had been worth the wait.